Hey everyone, welcome back to the Lion's Den and another episode in our Blue Collar Ballers series. Today we speak with Adrian Vigil, who is the CEO of Top Notch Plumbing, located near Denver, Colorado. This is a crazy conversation, honestly. I mean, we go through a lot of what it took for Adrian to start his business and grow his business and, sort of the entrepreneurial journey. But what is really amazing about the conversation is his beginnings. And so we get into that, some of the things he had to overcome in order to start a business, a thriving business at this point, I might add. So really cool story. Check this out. So Adrian, I'm super excited to talk to you today. You've got a really crazy story, honestly. I was reading up on it a little bit. Obviously, you run your own business, Top Notch Plumbing. We're going to get into that. But first, I wanted to talk about what was going on before you founded Top Notch Plumbing. And I think this is like the 12-year anniversary of back in 2023 when you were involved in an explosion. Is that right?
2013.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
I appreciate you having me on this morning. Looking forward to sharing a little about myself and our business endeavor. Yeah, in 2013 was a interesting year to say the least.
Mhm.
I wasn't in the best place in my life at that juncture. Um, I think I was 40 in my early 40s,
Mhm.
and at the time I was homeless, um, battling some addictions,
Mhm.
uh, and unemployed. And I had ended up meeting a guy that we had drug use in common, and I
Okay.
ended up passing out or staying in his basement. And on Valentine's Day 2013, around 10 p.m., um, I don't remember much before the actual explosion, and I had went to my car outside, and uh, I must have opened the door or opened the trunk, and the car exploded in front of my friend's house. So apparently, there's an acetylene tank in the trunk that had a leak, and
Mm.
the gas was accumulating in the vehicle. And when I went to open the vehicle, something ignited the gas. The car exploded. Um, Immediately after the first explosion, I ended up on the sidewalk on my
Mhm.
back, and the Jesse, the guy I was living with at the time, really good friend, came outside, him and a neighbor, and dragged my body away from the car, which was fortunate. The car exploded. Had two other explosions. I don't know if it was like the gas tank or a
Mhm.
battery or what that was, but they moved me away from the vehicle. Um, I was put in an ambulance. At some point later, I was put in a drug-induced coma and flight for life to Denver, Colorado. It was in northern Colorado that this happened.
Mhm.
And I was in the hospital for approximately a month, recovering from the injuries. Uh, I sustained multiple injuries. I lost my left eye, a lot of glass and metal shrapnel.
Mhm.
So I got pieces of glass in my chest and my face. I broke my leg, and to this day, there's pieces of glass that works its way out.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy. So, and it took you a month to heal. So how do you go from that life that you were in, then this explosion occurs, and now, I mean, we're now what, 12 years later, you've got a thriving business. So like what happened? Was like being in the hospital for a month, did that like kick any drug addiction that you had and then you were able to sort of like climb uphill from there, or like what was the turning point? How did that happen?
So I had been in the plumbing trade for 24 years at that juncture. And as an adult, my alcoholism and addiction came to fruition, and I ended up bouncing around in different shops here in northern Colorado as a plumber. And after the explosion, it was a milestone. It was life changing. I always, even prior to the explosion, knew I wanted to be sober. It was battling the addiction, and then the life tools, and then just my place in life, not having a place to sleep, being unemployed. That all plays with the whole situation. After the explosion, it was an emotional and mental wake up, how precious life is and how close I was to losing my life. And remarkably, I didn't get out and sober up. It was an interesting situation. You go into the hospital battling drug addiction, and they put you on more drugs to deal with the pain and the injuries. So you get out and you're high on prescription pills. It took me a little time after that to sober up. In 2016, October 2016 is when I formed an LLC. Around that time, I was working for a major plumbing and mechanical company out of Denver. And a couple instances has come about in my journey working for other folks. And in 2016, I got my master's plumbing license and my plumbing contractor's license, and slowly began to form Top Notch Plumbing.
Okay, so what was it in 2016 that finally got you to a point mentally where you were like, you know what? I'm going to go do this myself. I'm going to get my licenses. I'm going to start an LLC. I'm going to start a business. Like, because not a lot of people make that jump to being an entrepreneur because it's hard.
Sure.
What was it? What was it at that time that made you really think like, hey, I need to do this?
So due to the bouncing around at different shops, because of my work ethic and my addiction and alcoholism, I was able to experience how different shops were running their business. And from my perspective, none of them was healthy environments. None of them had a good culture. And there was one particular instance while I worked for a plumbing company right around that same year in Fort Collins, Colorado. And the superintendent had pulled all his plumbers on this job site into a construction site room. So we were mid-phase of construction at a multifamily project. So imagine this huge multifamily building with barely framed in with walls, no windows. And he pulls us all into this corner unit. And there's probably 15, 20 of us. And he begins to yell and curse at us due to some behaviors of a few among us. None of it applied to me. He wasn't talking to me, but his means and his best way of communicating that he knew how was call us all in there, cursing at us and yelling. And right after that happened, right after that meeting, I remember going to where my hand tools were, my cordless tools. I grabbed them and I quit.
Wow.
So that was one instance that began to form the idea that I didn't want to work for somebody else where I wasn't able to have a say in the culture or how I was treated or how the communication was happening at this place of business.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so you get your licenses, you have your LLC, and now you have your own company. So, I mean, what was it like in the beginning? Because I mean, most startup founders in any industry know that when you start your business, you don't really have any money coming in,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
life can be difficult, right, for your business. So what was it like in the early days?
Yeah. No, that's a interesting conversation. I always a little hesitant when I'm sharing the timeline with people. In 2016, October is when I essentially founded Top Notch Plumbing, and in 2018 I sobered up. So there was a couple of years there that I was still struggling with my personal challenges. Um, Early on, I had worked for this major plumbing and mechanical company out of Denver, and when I had got my master's license and my plumbing contractor's license, I began to advertise on Craigslist. And one of the first calls I got, and at the time I was working full time and providing my own services after hours and on the weekends. One of the first calls I got was from a gal here in Greeley, and she had contacted me and let me know that she didn't have hot water. Um, so in a roundabout way, I ended up getting to her house, and she lived in a poverty-stricken neighborhood here in Greeley. The mobile homes were a little older, and I get to her house. It's dark. It's after work. I go inside. I talk to her about what's going on. Prior to that, I had somewhat diagnosed it talking to her over the phone. And as I walk into her home, I see a couple of kids, a toddler that was running around, and I think she had a baby in her arms. I walked through her house, and there's dishes piled up, and in her laundry room, there's clothes piled up. So I'm beginning to get this uh, understanding of what it's like to raise kids with no hot water. And somewhere along the line, I learned that her partner is away, incarcerated. So she, a single mother with her partner incarcerated, no hot water, taking care of her kids. And I began to feel this sense of responsibility of trying to help these folks, and uh, thoughts like getting up and trying to get to school. All these thoughts are playing through my head as I'm beginning to consider how I'm going to get this gal hot water. Uh, Somewhere along that timeline, I understood that there had been a couple of plumbers that she had contacted, and unfortunately, due to her financial status not being able to pay a ton of money, they fell away, and no one was able to come over and complete the project. So I went outside in those mobile homes. The water heaters placed in like a closet on the outside of the mobile home. I opened the door outside. I have my floodlight, and my background is in commercial plumbing. I have 25 years of commercial plumbing, not a ton of experience in repair and service. So I'd called my Uncle Joe. I'd called folks on how to do this job. The gas valve, I intended on replacing it. So I needed to take the gas valve out. I didn't know if I should empty the tank or not. I ended up putting the gas valve in. I attempt to turn on the water heater, and it turns on. And I had a sense of relief at the time. And then I go inside, I start running water, and she has hot water. And her response and the elation and the relief and the appreciation that she had was dynamic. I mean, that experience in itself, I remember getting into my truck. She may have gave me 35 bucks. I don't know, plus the part. I got in my truck and I just remember uh, honestly feeling this sense of like a high, just really feeling elated about being able to help this gal and her kids. And that was one of my first jobs. And that feeling and experience is what carried me on today. Um, Early on in business, you talked about the financial aspect. I was still living, I think at that point, I had rented a loft from a friend. So I had no car payments, no mortgage, little rent. I wasn't married, no children. All the money that I was able to earn, I was able to reinvest into the company. At some
Okay,
point,
so hang on, because I want to hit on a couple of things, because that was really poignant story, and I think very valuable to any listeners out there who are construction tradesmen of any type. Okay, so you talked about in your early days you kept a day job basically, right? So you had income coming in from a day job, and you started your own business on the side, right? And so that's a really important lesson for people, because if you go at it and start your thing and just quit your day job, it's going to be really tough unless you have wealthy family or something like that.
Yep.
So that was lesson one. Lesson two, what I took from that is just say yes to whatever job you can get in the early days, right? You went over there, you said yes to a job nobody else wanted.
Yep.
And but that's how you get going. That's how you get your start. Number three lesson I took from that is just be focused on really satisfying your customer in the early days, especially because if you can start to get those customers who are like, wow, he went above and beyond, that's how you build a customer base. And in a trades business, that's what it's all about, is having your loyal customer base that will be with you for a long time. And then the fourth thing you just said at the end there is keep your expenses as low as possible in those early days. Don't start a business and say, all right, I need 3 trucks and I'm going to hire 8 people and I'm going to do this and that.
Yep.
That's a recipe for disaster if you don't have the client flow yet. So it sounds like you're doing everything right. So, okay, keep going with your story.
Yeah, those are some good takeaways. And what's interesting about the entire endeavor, being self-employed and growing our business, is unfortunately I dropped out of school when I was 13, so I didn't have any formal business training or education. I later got my GED when I was 17. And another key point that you mentioned that is really relevant to our story is taking jobs that no one else wanted. What's really interesting is at some point in the beginning of our endeavor, it was just me. And remarkably, one of my first employees was my Uncle Joe. And he was the first guy I worked for 25 years ago. He was one of our first employees. And then I was able to take on another gentleman that's still with me today. Let's see, roughly 2020, after 2 years in business, he's 6, that would have been 4 years in business. We had an opportunity to work in another older mobile home park. So 2 key things to keep in mind when realizing this is always answering our phone and taking on any jobs that were available. We got a call to repair a drain line at a mobile home park here in Greeley, and we went out to look at it, and this job ended up helping us grow 300%. At that time, I was probably earning $60,000-$80,000 a year. That project in itself was, I think, $600,000. We were able to complete it in 4 months, and it was all self-performed. We had very little cost of goods. We had material, pipe, PVC pipe and fittings, and some excavation. Most of it was labor, and we made a ton of money, and because of that, we grew, and we were able to grow our commercial division. So right around that same time, today we like to consider Top Notch Plumbing having two divisions. We have a commercial division and we have a repair and service division. The repair and service division incorporates different departments. We have a drain cleaning department, we have an HVAC department, and a plumbing department. On our commercial division, we have commercial plumbing installation, which provides plumbing installation in small to medium-sized projects. Nowadays, we're gravitating more towards the medium size. And for us, that means anywhere from $500,000 on up. We have a couple $1 million projects. And that's the plumbing end. That's not the entire project. So that would be our plumbing contract.
Wow, that's huge. That's incredible. So when did you add the HVAC element into the business?
Yeah, so adding the drain cleaning department and the HVAC department are some, I stumbled into business, and it's just a lot of it came naturally. And looking back, I've took some classes and some courses and learned about marketing and financials and policies and systems and HR. And I look back and I'm like, man, I sure was able to navigate them. Not sure how I did it, but it all made sense. Early on, I wanted to evaluate our divisions as businesses. So we started using QuickBooks, for instance, and we would have different classes. We would use our commercial division as a commercial class, a repair and service as a repair and service class. We were able to pull separate financials to evaluate each business individually to ensure that they were self-sustaining in themselves. And early on, I began to see a need for HVAC and drain cleaning, and we were providing that. We didn't have the know-how or the manpower. We brought on drain cleaning in 2022. We brought on a guy, and drain cleaning has proved to be a really profitable business. Very little cost of goods, virtually no material. It's all you invest in the equipment, and you're selling this guy's labor, and it proved to be a really good business. We introduced that in 2022. He's been with us. Jeremiah has been with us now for 2 years, and we're looking to hire another drain cleaner to help him in 2025. As in any business, it takes anywhere from 2 to 3 years to begin to see high margins, and that's kind of the way we expect that. With our HVAC department in 2024, at the beginning of 2024, we as a team, and that's part of our story. We can talk more about that later. I'm not where I am at today because of my own doing. I have a remarkable team of pros on our side. We had decided to introduce an HVAC department in 2024 and begin to seek an employee. And later on, at the beginning of the year, we found a gentleman that was an ideal fit. He came from a mutual friend, and he came on board, and he was exactly what we were looking for. And we had begun to offer continuing education so we can obtain the appropriate mechanical licenses and other licenses needed to pull permits and to get inspections for the type of projects that we were looking into. Unfortunately, that ended on bad terms. The end of last year in September, this gentleman was a no call, no show. And we talked amongst our team about what to do. Some of the conversations were, this isn't like him. Should we give him a call? We've been trying to call him. Eventually, at the end of the day, we decided to do a wellness check, and we called our local authorities, and they went out to check on him. A few hours later, I was having dinner with some friends, and I got a call. The Fort Collins Police Department had entered his place of residence, and he was passed away.
Wow.
So that was it was the first time something like that has happened to me in my walk and in business. So we were really conscious of how to address that with our team as a company, on social media, with the family. And we, to this day, I hope that we navigated it with respect. We love Colin, we miss him, and our condolences are with his family. However, the bottom line for Top Notch Plumbing, bringing in 2025, we still are steadfast at introducing HVAC repair and service first, and then maybe as we dial that in later on in years, we may offer mechanical HVAC installation in our commercial division. So once we began to talk about introducing the HVAC again in 2025, we had a young man on our team with some HVAC experience that volunteered to take on the training to get his mechanical license, his gas fitting license, and to pursue that endeavor. So that's how we're introducing it this year.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, and I love that. I mean, as your business continues to grow, you look for additional products and services that you can add on, and that makes sense. And that's a way to become a much bigger business. I want to hit on, going back to one of the first stories you told of when you were working for some other company and the owner or the project manager or whatever gathered all you guys in a room on site and started screaming at you. So now you have your own business, right? And so you obviously don't want to repeat the mistakes of past owners. What are you doing differently as a CEO and as a leader of your team? Like how do you lead? How do you run your business? How do you treat your employees? What's your perspective on all that?
It's ongoing transformation. I think at its very core, its foundation from very early on is respect and consideration and communication. So we had developed and built a really strong foundation in our community with repair and service. Our city, our town has voted us best plumber the last 5 years, and that is because we treat our customers with respect and customer service, and that starts in the shop, and that starts with how we talk to each other in our office. I say it's been a transformation because very early on it wasn't perfect. I didn't know exactly how to communicate as a business and how to inspire others to communicate with one another as well. But it's developed, and today and the last couple of years, we've tried to build a culture of a teamwork respect, consideration, and self-betterment, continuing education. We offer a ton of employee opportunities, teamwork exercises. We have like a holiday party. We've gone go-karting. We've been to Top Golf. We've been bowling. We've done a ropes course, um, which is really unique in our industry, given the construction industry uh, has historically a different culture, more brash, rough around the edges um, mentality that's shared on job sites that we try to um, override that with our own culture. Um, but I think for the most part, our guys are happy where they're at. We've had we're relatively new in business. We've been in business 8 years. We have guys that have been with us 5, 4 years, 3 years, and I think a lot of these guys, they bounced around a lot in northern Colorado, and they've come to our shop, and they appreciate that they're not getting yelled at, they're not getting cursed at, and we're able to offer them competitive wages, and we look to hopefully um, enabling them to be as happy as they can at work. It's a job. We all have to have some type of job to sustain our families and our incomes, our obligations. But we do our part to try to make that a pleasant experience for our guys.
Yeah. So last thing here, and then I want to wrap up. It always, I guess it shouldn't amaze me anymore, but it still does a little bit, that many entrepreneurs I talk to are endurance athletes. Like, I don't know why that is. Maybe because entrepreneurship takes a lot of endurance, and so it just is part of our DNA. I don't know, but you are a marathon runner now. Is that right? You started in 2022. Tell me a little bit about that hobby.
Yeah, yeah. And if I may, I'll definitely look forward to touching on that. If you would give me an opportunity to just talk about our team.
Okay.
Part of where I got to today is being open to growing. A lot of plumbers and folks in the construction industry get stuck in what they know, and then that doesn't allow for growth. Very early on, I only knew so much, and I knew I could only make so much money in 8 hours. In order for me to make more money, I had to multiply myself, and in order for me to expand in business, I needed to acquire knowledge outside of my understanding. And because of that, I've been able to bring on commercial manager Keith, our repair and service manager, um, Roland, and my general manager Harold, and a couple of guys that have been with me long term, my nephew Scotty and Austin in the commercial division. I wouldn't be where I'm at today if I didn't have a bunch of professional, quality guys that stuck with me through it all. Lastly, just to touch on the marathon stuff, I don't know, about 3 years ago, a friend of mine and his family were running the Boulder, and at that time I had been feeling lethargic, overweight, and out of shape. So that was a spark for me to begin get off my butt and go out for a run, and I've held on to it. I've ran 3 marathons since, uh, the Colfax Marathon in Denver, Colorado Marathon in Fort Collins, Kauai Marathon in Hawaii, and I'm training now for the Big Sur Marathon in California.
Wow, that's epic. I actually lived in Kauai for 2 years. So when did
Oh,
you run
really?
that? Yeah.
Y'all, that running a marathon is dynamic. I mean,
Yeah.
there's the physical aspect, and then there's the mental aspect. I've had so many revelations on a marathon, and I've come to a lot of conclusions. And the Kauai marathon, uh, we got into this habit of not doing the research before we get to the marathon. So it was surprising to see all the heels. And the guy, one of my buddies that I run with, Harold, it darn nearly made him want to quit running, which was in perspective because at the finish line, he was ready to throw in the towel, and I was ready to run more. Once we met, we were able to talk it out, and we decided that we're going to try another marathon here in California. And yeah,
Wow, that's awesome. Cool. Well, Adrian, thank you so much for coming on the show. We'll link to your website, topnotchplumbingllc.com. And, for listeners out there, especially if you work in construction, work in the trades, and you're not sure if you have what it takes to start your own company, I hope Adrian's story is enlightening to you and lets you all realize that, hey, man, if he could do it, I have to overcome a lot less than what he did. So thank you, man. Very inspiring. Thanks for coming on the show.
thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.